Beep 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 doo. Beep 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 doo. Beep 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 doo. Beep 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 doo. Beep 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 doo. Alright. So I think this is good. Got that. Got that. Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me talk? Looks like it. Close that. Okay, cool. All right, we'll get started here in a minute or two. We'll see how many people show up. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. It's okay. It's fine. It's totally cool. So I wanted to do a bunch of different stuff. Really quick, really fast. Get in, get out. So that's what we'll do. Wanted to do a demo of some stuff. Okay, and let me start on my whiteboard. Let's see, where are you, whiteboard? There we go. Alright, let me clear this. Alright, so clear you. Cool. Right. We'll see how long that lasts. Hopefully this isn't too laggy. This is an experiment. I haven't tried doing this before. Everything we're doing is kind of brand new for everybody, right? So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, if we decide to do it again in the future, it'll be a little bit smoother. Maybe next time. Fine. So we still got a couple minutes before. Just turned 8. I'll wait a couple more minutes just to see if anybody else decides to show up, and then we'll get started. Again, for anybody tuning in, this is purely optional. Wasn't required that you be here for this at all. I just had a little extra time, and functions are kind of tough, so I thought, hey, why not? Why not do just a quick little 30-minute, or so live stream demonstrating functions and functional programming, as a supplement to the videos that I already have done, and just see how it turns out. Hopefully people will find that a little on the useful side. Let's see here. I really should get another monitor if I'm going to do this in the future. because I got the live chat over there, but then okay, so only one person so far looks like. So I got the live chat over there, but then everything I want to do I'm going to have on a separate board over here, a separate window. So let's see if I can get all this on one screen at once. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right. But I want to have enough room to see the chat, just in case. There we go. I think that'll work. Ooh, pop-out chat. That's exciting. Let's do that. How cool. Technology. Isn't that amazing? Alright, so we'll try that. Alright. Let's go if we wait a minute or two. It'll give me enough time to finish eating my chili. Demo.cpp. Then we'll go from there. Which game are you playing? If you're still there. Mason Kennedy League? Oh, never heard of it. But I play stupid games, so I wouldn't have heard of like hardly anything. So, all right. So I'll wait for about another 4 minutes or so, and then get started. I'm gonna try to record this anyway and post it. So if it's just us, that's fine. People will be able to look at it on their own later if everything goes right. And it's just kind of a dry run, seeing how this works out anyway. I want to see if my software works and if this is actually a viable platform to deliver content and all that kind of stuff. So why not, right? Oh, I see. Your name is Mason Kennedy, and you typed League for League of Legends. I know that game. I played it, tried to play it. Terrible at it because too old. Alrighty, so let's see, what time is it? Got about I'll wait till 8:10. Only another 3 minutes or so. If nobody showed up by then, well, then it's their loss. Nobody else has come. Good, but I really wanted to try doing this on my YouTube channel because I might use it for other reasons, right, than just this. So I've been wanting to try streaming through YouTube for a while, and so I figured, why not? I got some extra time, and you can get paid by streaming stuff through YouTube, and I already have my channel monetized, so I figured I'd just give it a try, right? It's a win-win for everybody. Free lesson for students. I get to check out the software myself for my own purposes, so why not? And the nice thing is you don't have to install anything. Yeah, there's a delay. I don't know why. I didn't set it to delay, but there is. I'll have to look into that. It seems kind of silly. But it is what it is, I suppose. Let's see here. Alright. Oops. How about some timestamps? That'll be good. Is there anything else I can do in here? I don't think so. All right, so I could talk about that all day. I mean, I've been fiending on the news because it was like I think I mentioned this to you guys before we left class that last time on Wednesday, that we're living through history. So I've been following all the news like constantly, just devouring it because this is crazy. And our country's response to the crisis has been the worst of all the other countries by far. So this is going to get really ugly really fast. National Guard's being deployed now, and the bodies are going to start piling up probably in the next couple of weeks. Because exponential growth, it's a bitch. All right, anyway, so I'm going to get started with this. What I wanted to do was just, walk you through in this video or this stream. I wanted to walk you through the basics of functions, right? I mean, you got all the videos for the class posted already. Hopefully you've been able to watch those. Got the textbook, right? Everything that you need to do any of the work I'm going to give you has been provided. I mean, textbook, it has everything right there just by itself. But it can be useful to see some more demos, to walk you through the process, I guess. So I was going to do something maybe a little bit more involved, but not too involved. So what I wanted to do is learn to speak, which I've never learned to do. Anyway, so want to talk about functions, prototypes, calling functions, returning values from functions, designing a modular program. So remember that all computer programs do three things, right? They get input, they process it, and they provide some kind of output. Oops, I don't want to make a Q. Why would I do a Q? Some kind of output, right? So you can always start there when you're thinking, well, what's my program going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to design this thing? How am I going to make it? What's going on? I don't know what I'm doing. You can always start there. Okay, and so functions can be used to support this whole idea, as we'll see, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to design and implement a geometry. I was going to say geography, but I meant to say geometry. I think that's how you spell geometry. Calculator, right? Calculator. Right. So now I'm going to do this in a modular way. I'm not going to just vomit everything up into main. That's disgusting. That's gross. That's kind of what we've been doing with everything before Chapter 6, and that's definitely not the way that you design software of any complexity whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify a bunch of tasks that my program needs to do, and then I'm going to assign those tasks to individual functions. And then I'm going to write those functions one at a time until I'm done, right? So I need to understand the problem. Right? I've been saying this all semester long. Understand the problem. Problem is we need a geometry calculator. We need to come up with a plan, right? And I'm going to show you a new tool for doing that. And then we need to implement that plan, right? And as part of that plan, I'm going to figure out a bunch of tasks the program has to perform, and then we're going to write functions for those tasks. Okay, and that's going to give us a modular program. So this geometry calculator, what I wanted to do, I don't want to keep you here like all night long. Right? This isn't going to be a full-on lecture or anything like that. So we'll keep the scope of it pretty small. So maybe this geometry calculator will have really two functions, right? Two things it should do. It should calculate the area of a circle and calculate the area of a rectangle, whatever. That's good enough. Okay, so we'll need that. Those are two tasks this thing has to do, is calculate those areas. But if I think about how this program is going to run, right, envision how it might look on the screen, right, how would I make it menu driven? Okay, make it menu driven. That'll be another task. So you can imagine that as this program's running, a menu shows up, and then we prompt the user to enter their choice for that menu item, right? Or excuse me, enter the choice for what they want to do, right? Based off of that menu. So, maybe it's option C, you find the area of the circle. Option R, you find the area of a rectangle, and then maybe Q to quit, maybe something like that. Now, what's the area of a circle? Well, the area of a circle is pi r squared, so I'm thinking this all through. Area of a rectangle, I know that's length times width. Okay, so that will be fine. Okay, so it's going to be menu driven. We're going to have these three options, C, R, and Q. Right, so I present the menu, prompt the user for their selection, and if they choose option C to find the area of a circle, then I have to prompt the user, well, what's the radius, right? And then after that, I'll show them their output. Well, here's your area, right? And then I'll show them the menu again, okay? And then we'll just keep going. We'll just keep looping until they decide, that they want to quit, until they hit Q, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking I want to do, right? I think that's going to be an effective plan. I'll just clear this entire canvas. Clear. There we go. All right, so get input, get output, or get input, process it, display some output. So I'm going to use this tool called a hierarchy chart to help me figure this out even more. Right? So hierarchy chart, I think I introduced this earlier in the semester, but you can also use these for functions, right? So I have to create this calculator program based off of the parameters that I just mentioned. Okay, now that program is going to do at least 3 things, right? At least 3 things. What are those 3 things? Well, it's going to get some input, okay, and then it's going to process it, and then it's going to display some output. Okay. Now I can break down each one of those steps even further. I can say, well, what about the input, right? Well, what's going to be involved with that? Well, I'm going to have to show the user that menu, right? And then I'm going to have to ask them for their choice, right? And then once I've gotten their choice, I'm then going to have to ask them for some numbers, right? If it's for a circle, I'll have to get the radius, right? And if it's for a rectangle, then I'd have to get the length and width, right? Length and width, which you can't read that, sorry, I'm just making these little notes here as I go along to keep it straight in my head. Now, once I get the choice, right, it's either going to be get radius or get length and width, right? So I'll make a little or there to remind myself that only one of these things is going to happen, okay? Now, once we've got that information, either the radius or the length and the width, then the processing part's going to come in. And what are the 2 things we can do as far as processing, right? Calculate the area of the circle, right? Or calculate the area of the rectangle. Okay, so again, only one of those 2 things is going to happen, right? So that's going to be an or. Now once I've figured out what the area is, I'm going to do the output. Okay, so I'll display that on the screen. Okay, now I can break down, menu, or maybe can I make it any simpler? Well, I mean, is it obvious to me now? How would I print out a menu? Well, it's just a bunch of cout statements. So there's no really way to simplify, printing out the menu anymore. What about getting their choice from them? Well, that's a CIN statement. So there's nothing really to simplify from that level either, from that task. Getting the radius from the user, well, that's just a CIN statement. That's going to be easy. Getting length and width, just 2 CIN statements. That's fine, right? What about calculating the area of a circle, pi r squared, right? Just going to be arithmetic. Calculating the area of a rectangle, well, length times width, right? Displaying the total area, just a cout statement. So at this bottom level, I've got a pretty good idea of how I'm going to build this, right? Because all these tasks are pretty darn simple on their face. Okay, so that's going to be kind of my plan. And now, what about functions? Well, each one of these boxes can also represent one function that you need for your program, right? So I need to print out, let me go ahead and scroll up here a little bit. Okay, just make me some more room. So I need to print out the menu, so I'll need a function to print the menu. So maybe I'll call it print menu, right? So that's one function. I have to get the choice from the user. As you're going through and you're developing your plan, I mean, the first draft you come up with may not be the best. You might have to go back and repeat your plan. You might have to go back to the drawing board, and that's okay. That's normal. That's really part of the design process. So, getting the choice, maybe I will write a function for that. Right, I will do that. And that way we can validate the choice within the get choice function. Now, for getting the radius, right, I can write a function that does that, get radius. Right, for length and width, I could write a function called get length width. Okay, and now I'll have functions for those 4 tasks. I need a function for calculating the circle area, so I'll call that calc circle area, and calculate rectangle. Okay, and then one more function over here, display. So we'll call that display area. Okay, and then for each one of these guys, I can make them functions as well, right? So that can help me to further split up my program. So I'll have a function called get input. I'll have a function called, do process. I kind of like that name, do process. Right, and then maybe show output. Okay. Now each one of these functions is in turn going to get called by main. Right. So this box right here corresponds to the main function. Right. Main is going to call the get input function. It's then going to call the do process function. It's then going to call the show output function, and then the input function, the get input function, is going to call these other 4 functions we talked about. Process is going to call these other 2, and then output's going to call display. Okay, so that's kind of like our plan. That's our roadmap. Okay, so now that we have a plan of all the functions, we know what order they're going to get called in based off our hierarchy chart, because you execute stuff from the left to the right. We can get to work. We can start building stuff. And when writing a modular program, you want to do it one piece at a time, one function at a time. Implement your plan one piece at a time. Because write the print menu function, test it, make sure that it works. Then you can plug it in. And once it's tested, you know that it works. Any other code you write, any other code that you write after that, if there's a problem with it, there's no way it can be in your previously written function, your previously written print menu function, because you already tested it. You know that thing's good, right? So let me go up here and start typing some code. What is the get underscore function's name? Oh, there's get choice, get radius, get input. Those are the 3 get functions. Right, so I'll type this back out because I know that there's a little bit of lag. Get radius, get choice, get length, width, and get input. Right. So I'm going to make all the prototypes for these first. Right. So you'll be able to see it up here in the code box. Okay. All right. So IO stream. Right. And you know what? I think just to make it interesting, depending on how long we go, right? I'm gonna try not to go like for an hour. I want to try to keep it to a half hour, so I'm gonna go kind of fast. But if there's time, we'll format the output of the areas to 2 decimal places or something like that, just to throw that in there. Okay. So you have to have int main. There's nothing we can get around that. There's no way we can get around that. You have to have that. Okay, so we're going to be building int main as we go. Right, so print menu, right? So print menu's job is just going to be display menu. Okay, and then the get choice function, right? This thing is going to be responsible for getting a choice from the user, right? and so on, right? I won't make comments for every single thing because that would take too long, but I'll explain as I'll remind you as we go along. So we'll need that. We'll need get radius, right? And we'll have that return a float. Okay. Get choice is going to return a character. So my menu system uses characters, and so get choice is going to be responsible for reading the character from the user, validating it, and then returning it. Let's see here. So we got that. What else? Get radius. We have get length width. Right. Now, here's the thing about that. Get length and width. Okay. The thing with get length and width is that function is going to be asking the user for the length and the width, right? But you can only return one value from a function. So having a return type of float here, that'd be great for returning one value, either the length or the width, right? But I can't return two values from one function. So I'll make this function void, but I'll use pass by reference. And I'll put the values that the user types into these reference parameters, and then that way they'll get into the arguments. And so I can kind of fake it like I'm going to be returning two values, right? All right, so get length. Let's see here. So we have calc circle area. Now I have to pass to it the radius, so we'll make that a float. And it's going to return a float because it's going to figure out what the actual area is. Let's see here, float calc rectangle. Should call that rectangle area to be consistent. Right, so that's going to need two numbers passed to it, the length and the width, and it'll return the area. Okay, let's see here. So display area. That's a void function because it doesn't need to return anything. So we'll pass this thing the area, and then that thing will display the area on the screen to, I don't know, 2 decimal places of precision. I think that's what we wanted. Let's see here. That's pass by reference. Pass by reference. Right. So I'll show you what was covered in the required videos you were supposed to watch. You did watch them, right? But I'll show you how they work. You'll see another example of it. Okay. Let's see here. So display area. Then we have the get input function. Let's see here. So void get input. Now get input is going to call menu choice, and either get radius or get length and width, right? So it's not going to require us to pass it any arguments, but well, I say that, right? Because what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to move data around between get input process and do process and show output. So you're going to have a lab on that, by the way, too. Pass by reference. Anyway, so we'll leave the details for passing the data around between get input, do process, and show output for later. Okay. All right. So we're going to need do process, and we're going to need show output. Right. So we'll think about these a little bit more in a sec. Right? Probably going to be using reference parameters. All right. Anyway, so we got our main then. So let's just start going through and writing each of these functions, right? We'll do them one at a time. So print menu is going to display the menu, right? So let's start writing it. Area the floats and arguments of circle and rectangular. That's right, because get radius is going to get its input from the user. It's not going to be passed as an argument, right? So get radius is going to ask the user for a radius, validate it, and then return it, right? So it doesn't need any parameters. So, because we're not passing in any arguments. Okay, here, let me scrunch this down a little bit because it doesn't need to be this big, and we'll make that a little bit bigger. Okay, and I'll just start writing these functions. So void print menu. Right. So this is going to look ugly because I just want to get going as fast as we can here. Let's see. So we'll just print a menu. So what were the options going to be? I think it was, C for find the area of a circle. Right. And then it was going to be R for rectangle area. Right. And then Q to quit. Okay, so that's all my print menu function has to do. So in main, print menu is going to get called by the get input function, right? That's this guy right here. So I should probably write that get input function also. So I will put that right here. Okay, and the first thing it does, according to our plan, according to our hierarchy chart, first thing it does is call menu, right? So or the print menu function. So that's what it's going to do. Okay. And so main has to, as the first thing it does, is the input part, which the function for that is the get input function. So inside of main, we'll call get input. Okay. So main's calling the get input function, and then get input function is calling the print menu function. So let's go ahead and just test what we have so far. Alright, so let us compile this and see if there's any errors so far. Right, compile early and often. You always want to do that. So compiled, no errors, awesome. Let's run it. Right, and I am going to have to make this a little bit bigger so we can see the output. But, okay, so there's the output. So that's the result of the print menu function. So at this point, I know that my get input function is getting called. I know that my print menu function is getting called. So far so good. Right, now the function for printing the menu, done. Right, I can cross that off my list. So next up is the function for getting a choice. Right, so let's write that. Okay, so that's going to return a character. Requires no inputs, and all this thing is responsible for is asking the user to enter their choice. So enter your choice. Right. And I'll create a local variable here called choice that we're going to read into. Okay. And after the user is read in to that variable, then we'll go ahead and return it. Okay. So once we have that, let's go ahead and test it. Right. So we'll go into the get input function and we'll call get choice after we printed out the menu. Right. Now that value that gets returned by get choice has to be placed somewhere. Right. So I'll put it into a variable called C, and then I'll assign get choice to C. And just to prove that it's working, I'll print out that variable. Right, that's just a little bit of testing code. Gonna delete it here really quick. Right, as soon as I know that it works. So let's go back down and compile and run the code. Right. So now you can see the menu being displayed, and then my prompt. And I noticed that I've got a typo there, so I'm going to fix that. But let me just type in a choice, and we can see, yeah, there's the G, right? So get choice got called. Then we prompted the user to enter their choice. They entered their choice into this local variable, and then we returned that value, which ended up back in C in get input, which we then displayed on the screen. Okay, so get choice is done. So I can scratch that off the list. Now, based off of their choice, we're either going to ask them for the radius or for length and width, right? So I need to make a decision. Okay, so many-based systems seem to be really naturally predisposed towards a switch statement. So I'll use a switch statement for this. So switch C. Okay. Now, the options in my menu so far, are just going to be, circle or C, R, or Q. So that's going to be my cases. Case C, case R, case Q. Right? And then I'll have a default also. Now I want to make this case insensitive, so I'll take advantage of that drop-through logic. Okay, and I'm going to put a break in between each option because I don't want to calculate the circle area and the rectangle area and then quit all and do all that stuff. Right? I only want one thing to happen, and then I want to break out. Okay. So right now, if I wanted to test what I have so far, I could put a little debugging statement here that says, you chose option C. I could then put a little temporary cout statement here that says, hey, you chose option R. I could do the same thing for here. Right? And then default. Right? This is kind of like the dangling else for if-else ifs, right? Where if everything else is invalid, this is kind of like your catch-all for some input validation. So I could say something like invalid option. Just let them know. Okay, so I got enough there to where I want to test what I got. Okay, so this right here is going to process if they deal with, trying to get the number for the radius or trying to get the length of the width. Okay, so let us go ahead and just test what we have so far. Okay, wow, compiled, crazy. Right, so there's the menu, C, right? I type C for circle area. So C went into character C here, and then switch C matches up with this case, so we see cout C. Right, and then if I want to test it for rectangles, we see the R. If I want to test it for quitting, we see the Q. And if I want to test it for an invalid option, right, we see that that works too. Okay. All right, so that looks good so far. So let's write the get radius function. Let's write the we'll just write the get radius function, and then we'll do the do process function, and then we'll call it a night at that point, right? Because I'm almost at a half hour right now, and I didn't want to make this be a long old hour-long lecture. And then since we've gotten it started, if you want, you can finish it. Okay. But anyway, so you'll get the idea, I think. All right, so let's write the get length width function. Let's write that one because you had the question about pass by reference, right? So you'll see that get to work. Okay, so let's write that. Okay, so void get length width. Okay, and you can actually come up here and copy and paste your prototype to speed this up a little bit. You've got to make sure that those things agree, right? The prototype and the function header, they've got to agree in terms of name, return type, and number and type of parameters. Okay, so doing a copy and paste like that can help you to avoid making any mistakes, unnecessary mistakes. So I'll name this first parameter L for length. I'll name the second parameter W for width. Okay, and so from here, what I'll do is I'll have two loops, right? So the first loop will be responsible for asking and validating the user's input for the length, and then the second loop for asking and validating the user's input for the width. Right now, Parameters, L and W, they are local variables, so I can use them inside the body of the function. But these are also reference parameters, special type. So with pass by reference, anything that you do to the parameter, you do to the argument. So if I have a statement in the body of this function like that, right, like line 56 there, then whatever the user types is assigned directly to L, which is really assigning it, which really means we're assigning it to that first argument passed to the get length width function. Anything you do to the parameter, you do to the argument. Okay, so let's go ahead and ask the user, give me the length. Right? Okay, now a negative length doesn't make any sense. So while they gave me a length that's less than 0, right? Less than or equal to. I mean, well, I say that. Whatever. I'll just stick with less than 0. Okay, I'm just making this up as I go along. I'm gonna print an error message. Error. No negative inputs. Let them know what they did wrong, and then ask for the number again. Okay. Right, and then got to do the same thing for the width. Okay, give me the width. Okay, and let's make sure this is W this time, and make sure that this is W this time, and make sure this is W this time. Right. So what's going to happen is that this function is going to run. It's going to ask the user for the length of the rectangle. They're going to type that in, right? And that value is going to be automatically assigned to the reference parameter. But really, since it's passed by reference, it's being assigned directly to the argument, right? When you do pass by reference, whatever you do to the parameter, you're actually doing to the argument, right? So this is kind of a way that you can fake returning more than one value, because we're going to do the same thing with the W parameter, okay? So that's what the code for that looks like. And then we'll go ahead and call it. All right, let's go plug that sucker in. So that was for case R. Right? So get length width. I think that's what I called it. Get length width, right? Okay, so I'm going to have to pass it 2 arguments. Okay, so I'll just add some more variables up here. So let's see here. So float L and W, or I'll call it length of width, just to show you that you don't have to use the same names as for arguments as you do for parameters. Okay, so we'll pass the length variable as an argument. We'll pass the width variable as an argument. And so now when the user selects as their choice R, this function is going to get called, right? And that function is going to do its thing. It's going to say, give me the length. And when they type in a response to this cin statement, the L parameter is linked to the length argument. So what they're actually doing is they're reading into that length variable back at the function call. So this is really like we're doing this, right? And so we can repeat that for W. So you can have as many parameters as you want. Even though you can only return one value, you can have as many parameters as you want. So this is a way that you can get multiple values out of a function. Okay, so let's put in some debugging code here. Just test it, some test code. It's not debugging, it's test code. So we'll see out length and we'll see out width just to see if it works. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile and run it. We'll choose R for rectangle. Okay, once I run it. Cool. So now this function just got called. So we jump down to the function definition, give me the length. Right? So that's what we see in the output. So now the program's waiting at this line right here, and as soon as I type my response, that response is going to go into that length argument right there. So I'll type 3.2. Okay. So then we got to, so 3.2 is not less than 0, so we're past the validation loop. So now we're at the second part of the get length width function. So I'll type -5, right? As soon as I type -5, well, -5 is in fact less than 0. So we're in the body of the loop. We're trapped in the validation part. So it asks for the width again and gives us a chance to give it the right value, 2.1. Okay. So once that happened, get length width function's done. So we go back to get input, go back to the function call, you go back from whence you came, break out of the switch, and then jump down to line 53 and display the contents of the length and the width variable. Okay. All right. So let's do one more function here, and then we'll call it a night, if you're still with me. So let's do the calculate rectangle area function, and that's going to require us to have the do process function. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll do the calculate rectangle function. Let's see here, the rectangle area function first. Okay, so this is going to get past the length and the width, and I'll call this len and I'll call this width of a rectangle, and it's just going to simply calculate it and return it. Okay, yeah, we're almost done. We're almost done. Good night. So we'll do that. Okay, and then we'll return it. Right. So this function's job was just to take its inputs, multiply them together, and then return the area. Right. There's no CIN or COUT statement here. It's not its task. Its task was to calculate the area, and that's what it did. Functions should do one thing and one thing well. Right. Matter of fact, people have made the argument. Sure, I'll post the code for it. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll absolutely post it. Yes, yes, I will. I'll post it on. Hi, by the way, welcome, guys. Didn't see it pop in. Yeah, I'll absolutely post this on Canvas under the sample code section so you can run it. I'm going to try to save the video too. It's the first time I've done this, so I'm not sure if I'll be successful with that, but I'll definitely post the code for you. And there's a delay in the chat and the live stream. I'm not sure why. I'm still working out the kinks. I don't know if I have control of that or not. But you know, if this goes well, then we'll try to do it again. All right. Anyway, so where was I? Okay, right. So get length and width does its thing, and I finished writing the calc rectangle area function. And the guy that's responsible for calling calc rectangle area is the do process function. So let's write that one right now. Okay, so void do process. Okay. Now this thing has to call calc rectangle area. Okay, and pass to it the length and the width. Right. So pass to it L and W, right? Right, yeah. And there is. I've seen that too with the chats. I think it might be to give moderators a chance to moderate, but I don't have any moderators, so it seems kind of pointless. So based on my plan, I know that calc rectangle area has to be called by do process, right? But take a look at L and W here, right? You know that values, or those values, those dimensions, right? Where did those guys come from? Well, those guys came from the get length width function, which is in the scope of get input, right? So those values are in this function in local variables. For calc rectangle to do its thing, it needs to get this data, right? So that's why I was saying at the beginning, well, we'll figure that out later. And so what we can do is, let's just use, it seems to me we can just use pass by reference again, right? So how about we change these local variables into reference parameters? We'll try this. We'll see if it works, right? Do that, and we'll do this. Okay, so I'll move them and make
make them reference parameters, and then any arguments that I pass to get input are going to be updated based off of what we assign to these reference parameters here, right? So instead of just having those values get placed in local variables, now they're being placed into arguments, okay? So let's go back up to my prototype. I got to fix that. Okay, so let's see here. Where were we? Get input, right? So get input then has to have two reference parameters. They always have to agree. Okay. Now, if that's the case, let's look at main. Okay. Now, main has to call next the do process function. Right? Based off of our plan, right? This is main. Main calls do input and then, or get input and then do process, right? So get input, then do process. So do process now requires, let's see here, let me go back here. Get length width, get input. Get input now requires that we pass it a couple of arguments, right? So let's do that. Okay. So A and B, we're passing those as arguments. Now, if we look at get input, okay, the get input function, it's going to have two parameters. So anything we do to these reference parameters, we're actually going to be doing to these arguments. That's what pass by reference means. So let's see here. So we go to get input, right? So these are the names of our reference parameters. So when get length width executes, the contents of length here are going to change based off of what get length width does. Same thing with the width, right? But now these in turn themselves are also reference parameters. So they're hooked up to these arguments right here. So anything we do to this parameter, we're doing to this argument. Anything we do to this parameter, we're doing to this argument, right? So that's going to change A and B here, which then would allow us to pass them on to do process. Okay. All right. So that would mean that do process is going to need to have a couple of variables, right? So to accept those arguments, and so then we can pass those to our calc rectangle area function, and then calc rectangle area can do its thing. Where did we define that? Let me go grab it. Oh, right there, right here, duh. Okay, and so that's going to return the product of length and width, and so we can put that into a variable. So let's see here. So we'll call this area. Area equals calc rectangle area. All right. So once we've done that, now this variable right here has got the area of the rectangle. Okay. Now we'd want to pass that on to be displayed by the display area function, but you know, I'm running up against the time limit here. This has already gone over, so I'll probably just leave it at that, right? And just to test it, we'll do cout area at this point, right? So we'll go ahead and we'll just say this is for testing, right? So do process would need to have its own decision structure to decide between whether it should call calc rectangle area or calc circle area, which means we probably would need another parameter here to pass the choice value, and then we'd need to be able to return the area, right, and then pass that on to the output function. But we'll leave it here. Okay, so let me get rid of this because that was just for testing in the previous function. Okay, let's see here. I think we have enough to test what we got here. So let's test what we got. All right, let's go check our main. So our main's going to call get input, passing A and B. Right. So get input then is now linked by the length reference parameter to argument A and the width reference parameter to argument B. So then get input starts executing. First thing that happens, print menu. So goes down, executes the print menu code, return back from whence we came. Then it calls the get choice function. So then we execute the get choice code, right? So the user types in a choice, that gets returned. That's returned into character variable C, which is then used in this switch statement. If the user typed R, then the get length width function gets executed, right? And so then that argument is going to be the length argument and the width argument. Those are then going to be attached to parameters L and W, passed by reference. And then this code right here is going to execute, asking the user, hey, give me a value for the length. Right? We got our validation loop. Once they give me something valid for that, that means that whatever they typed is going to be passed by reference into the argument length. And similarly for W here, ask them for the width. Whatever they type is going to be passed into the width argument here by reference. Okay, that function's finished. So when we return back to the function call, length has whatever the user typed in, width has whatever the user typed in, but those guys are themselves reference parameters. So this length variable is attached to, let's see, we were in get input, right? Is attached to A, right? This width parameter is attached to B. So now everything that the user typed for the length and the width is now in this variable A and this variable B, which we then turn around and pass on to do process. So a copy of what they typed will then be inside of L, and then a copy of what they typed that was in B is now inside of W. And so then we start executing do process. The calc rectangle area function executes. We pass the length to it, we pass the width to it. So the length that they typed is now in len. The width that they typed is now in wid. Inside of calc rectangle area, right? Multiply those two things together, return the area, and then that gets assigned to the area variable, which then, because we're wrapping up, will just be displayed on the screen, right? So let's test it. That's the theory anyway. Let's compile it, see if I have any issues. I do. So what do we got? Let's look. So this suggests that I got too many arguments, line 26 for my do process function. So line 26 do process. Why did I get that error? Because, take a look right here, I'll tell you exactly why. I got 2 arguments, but look at my prototype. No parameters in my prototype list, right? So let's fix that and try again. Okay, still got another issue. So what's the issue here? Undefined reference, do process. So let's see here. That usually means that you're trying to call a function that doesn't exist. So let's go look. So I'm looking at do process here. I'm looking at its parameter list. Now I'm looking at the parameter list for do process in my prototype. They don't agree. That's why we're getting this error, I believe. Right? So let's make them so they agree. Right? So the data types have to be the same. Right? And the number of parameters have to be the same. So let's try one more time. Cool. Right? So let's run it. So there's my menu. Right? So at that point, we ran main, get input function is running. Right? Print menu function just executed, and now we're waiting at enter your choice. The get choice function just executed. So I'm going to type R. Right? So when I typed R, get choice returned R inside of C. So switch R, the case that matches is right there. So then the get length width function is executing. Right? So get length width function, all this code is happening. So we just saw give me length on the screen. And at this cin statement, line 79, that's what we're at, this prompt. So now I'm going to type 4. Okay, so the 4 went into L, which really means that it went into, by reference, the argument that was passed to get length width. And now you see, give me the width on the output. And so we're here. Right, so then I'll type 2. Right, so that 2 was then assigned to the W parameter, which really means that it was assigned to the second argument that was passed to get length width. That's what pass by reference does. Okay, so the 4 went in there, the 2 went in there, but since those themselves were passed by reference, that means that the 4 and the 2 went into A and B. Right, so then due process happens. We pass the 4 and the 2 by copy. So the 4 got into the L, the 2 got into the W. Right, so then that got passed, those both got passed to calc rectangle area. So calc rectangle area, where are you, definition? There it is. So the 4 is in here, the 2 is in here. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 went into area, return area. So the 8 got returned. We'll go back from where we came. Oops, where did we come from? Right here, due process, right? So area's got 8 in it now, and so then we just displayed the area. Okay, so hopefully I didn't go too fast here. I'm trying to wrap this up because this is going way longer than I anticipated. So sorry about that. I'll post the code for you to take a look at. We see that we got the basics of it working. From here, I mean, if this was in class and I had another half hour, so I'd continue fleshing this out piece by piece, crossing off functions. But I'm developing each function one at a time. Remember, I had a plan, came up with a hierarchy chart that allowed me to break down, this complex problem, creating this geometry calculator, broke it down into a series of smaller steps, into smaller tasks, right? And then, let me go ahead and shoot this over here, right? Broke it down into smaller tasks, and then each one of these tasks themselves became a function, right? And then I was just implementing each one of those functions, one at a time, right? And just going through it. So this is a lot more complicated than what your homework assignments are going to be, but it does encapsulate or go through or demonstrate all the stuff that, you need to know, right? And, it does actually, it seems more complicated maybe on its face since you're just learning this, but this allows me to organize all of my code, right? And each individual function is responsible for one little thing, right? So if something goes wrong with getting input from the user, well, where do I go look for that? I go to the get input function. That's its job, right? So, if I didn't get the choice from the user correctly, well, where do I go for that? Well, the get choice function. That's its job, is to get the choice from the user. Go examine that function. What if there's something wrong with the menu? Well, go to the print menu function, make your changes there, right? And so forth. So it sets up an architecture for your program where everything's laid out in a logical way and data's moving around in a safe way. We're not using any global variables here, right? Global variables, very, 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 very bad. You want to avoid them as much as possible. You should never use them unless there's just no other choice. Because if I had used global variables here and something went wrong, look at all these functions that I have, right? Every single one of these functions would be able to directly access a global variable and screw up that global variable, right? It makes it harder to track down errors. So passing local variables, using pass by reference as needed, using pass by value as needed, and making sure that main is encapsulating my mainline logic, right? So the next thing that I would be adding to main after this would have been, that function, what did we call it? Show output, right? So show output would have been the next function that got called, and we'd be passing it the area, right? And so the main would look really, really, really simple, really, really, really clean, and you can just look at it and go, oh, well, it's getting input, it's doing something with that input, and then it's going to display the results of that. And so anything related to the input is going to be called by get input. Anything related to processing is called by that function. So then you'd know where to go to look for, any problems or to make any modifications. Okay, so I think that's everything that I wanted to do. Again, this went longer than I expected it to. Thanks for sticking with me if you did. Hopefully that'll be helpful a bit, make you feel a little bit more comfortable. As usual, you want to be practicing. Read your textbook, watch the videos, the required videos, and write code. And maybe the labs will be a little bit easier. Do the labs before the homework assignments, right? That's the way that's designed, even though, although this online format, we kind of have to get away from it a little bit. So I know there's a lag of a few seconds, so I'll just say, is there any questions? And I'll hang out for a few minutes to answer any questions before I log off and go get a beer. And I'll wait for the lag to play out. Is anybody even still here? Let's see. Participants. No, I guess you all bailed. Okay. Well, then that's that. I'll post this stuff, and it's a recording. That's why I'm still finishing it off, even though my participants list is empty. Anyway, see ya. In stream. Not yet. Let's see, what's this? Create a highlight video. Yeah, I'll end stream. Watch that stream. Okay.